what you just talked about there is really multisensory. And I think there is something really multisensory about Indian cuisine. And I think part of it for me has always lied in the fact that I feel more comfortable eating Indian cuisine with my hands.
Exactly, and I think it's the only way it should be eaten, to be honest.
Really?
And I hope that remains, because I know studies, I think I learned it from you the last time we met, that there is, I think Professor Charles Spence has done something on it as well about tactile eating and the difference between a texture on a spoon, a rough surface enhances sweetness. Is that right?
Yeah, so there'll be correlations between the texture and the perception of sweetness, sourness, bitterness.
But I think there's a certain emotional connect with your food that happens at a different level when you consume food with your hands.
Yeah.
It's much more sensory, I think, because you're losing that element of touch and feel that you normally don't get when you're eating with cutlery or chopsticks. I think certainly there's pleasure in eating Indian food that way, and a lot of us grew up eating food that way, so it just seems natural. I can equally understand the other side of the spectrum, wondering why you would want to eat with your hands if you're just not used to it as part of your upbringing. But I think certainly the emotional connect with your food is that much stronger and deeper, perhaps due to the fact that we touch our food more.
Because Indian food is highly visual in terms of the colors and the display, and even kind of the way it's displayed on the table, right? I mean, that for me, I would say, is a big part of what makes Indian food really appetizing, is as well the visual display.
True. Very similar to the Middle Eastern style as well. Perhaps a lot of our cuisine is borrowed from the Middle East. I think a lot of what we know as Indian food today, certainly North Indian food today, has come from the Middle East. And that whole idea of sharing, of tasting a whole multitude of flavors in one dish, and textures and color, and I think that certainly adds to the magic of the cuisine. And then you have
the aromatics as well. I think that's such a kind of intense experience as well.
When people talk about spice, they often misrepresent it as heat.
I agree.
That's only one part of spice. And when you say Indian food is spicy, I don't think you should mean that it's a Scoville scale heat.
Yeah.
Spices, like you said,
I
now
completely
is
agree with you. I
aromatics.
think there is a huge difference between spicy in the context of heat and chilies, and spiced in terms of using
aromatics.
A much wider range of very pungent, flavorful spices that don't necessarily add to the trigeminal sensation. So the tingling, the heat, the pain element, and are much more on the side of aromatics and flavor.
That's right. I mean, some have a combination of the two as well. Take, for example, cinnamon or even nutmeg. A very a tiny dose of cinnamon would probably, the first impression is the fragrance, the aroma, and then you do get the heat. Similarly with nutmeg as well. But these spices are used in traces, in microscopic quantities, really, and perhaps more for their curative properties than we seem to understand today.